Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the RevLimit Workshop 200 from Kansas Speedway. Tonight, we will run the second race of our round of 14 in the Elite Belly Up Sports Cup Series playoffs. My name is David Westergreen. I will be joined tonight by David Huckleberry and Zach Evans as we cover this race from Kansas. And Zach, playoff race number 2, the site of our last championship race in this series was Kansas, and it was won by Ethan Stanley. What do you expect tonight?
Look, Kansas is always one of the favorites among drivers here on iRacing here in Elite. Think you're going to see a lot of great racing. Think you're going to see hopefully some long green flag runs, some strategy, 200 miles, 134 laps, plenty of time to maybe get off sequence and try to make something happen if we do get those long green flag runs. And that could be what decides who wins tonight.
It sure could. Yeah, that's what happened last year when Ethan Stanley and Matthew Weeks worked their way to the front on that pit strategy. I think they short pitted, wound up at the front, and never looked back from there. It's tough to pass. It's going to be the high side dominant. The car is tight. We'll get into all of that once this race starts, but we do have our starting lineup for you on the screen right now, and Tate Lytle will be rolling from P1. Ethan Stanley will start to his outside, last week's winner at Mid-Ohio, and Stanley in the green number locked in to the round of 9 coming up in a couple weeks' time. Matthew Weeks and Ethan Burrell will go from row 2. Gavin Hibbs and Corey Abbott will go from row 3. Tyler Fody and Ryan Gable will go from row 4. Jesse Racimus and Trey Holmes will start on row 5, and Chris Wright and Justin Wadsworth will start on row 6.
Hunter Smith, Ryan Schold, a pair of teammates for Little Eagle Racing, will make up the 7th row. Zach Rogers, Scott Crump on row number 8. David Tooker will start 17th. Justin Fortner lines up 18th. Chad Frankenfield 19th. Jordan Owens rounding out the top 20. On row 11, on the inside, Johnny Thomas. To the outside, Justin Vandermarl. Row 12 consists of Leighton Norgard and Mike DeWalt.
Row 13, Jonathan Cutlip, Nick and Delicato, a couple of chase drivers back in the field. Row 14 is Ray Bracey and Michael Goodman. Row 15 will be Josh Clark and Kyle Hanshaw. Row 16 is Christopher and Josh Adams. Ty McIntosh and Michael Hosack make up row 17. Gerald Campbell and Jeff Green make up row 18.
Rounding out our lineup this evening, Mark Rebellis, Casey Hatch, Brent Jones, Carlos Acosta, I do believe, waiting official confirmation, but pretty sure he was the slowest open driver in the field and therefore will not be able to start tonight. Andrew Rucker, Seth Rawls, Dustin Dewar, Josh Personette would round out the field if that is indeed the case.
Yep. So Acosta has disconnected. Disappointing result for our buddy Carlos, but from Kansas, Tate Lytle will lead us to the green flag. We will turn 134 laps around this 1.5 mile D-shaped oval, and we will see whether Tate Lytle, Ethan Stanley, Matthew Weeks, or maybe someone from the mid-pack can take him home. Tate Lytle brings us into the restart zone. The green flag is out. We are racing at Kansas. Tate Lytle and Ethan Stanley side by side into turn number 1.
Green flag underway. Second race of this playoff for the Elite Belly Up Sports Cup Series. We'll see who gets the advantage down the backstretch here. Still the leaders side by side. Tate Lytle to the inside. Ethan Stanley to the outside.
And that outside lane is going to be the preferred line. You can see just how much speed Ethan Stanley's 91 car carries to the outside of Tate Lytle. They'll battle down to the line for the first lap lead. It'll be Ethan Stanley over Tate Lytle. That outside line already paying dividends. Ethan Burrell into second. Looks like Corey Abbott's taken over that 5th spot from Gavin Hibbs, and everyone trying to migrate up to what I expect to be the dominant line tonight is a one in the wall. It's Ryan Schold in the 4 car, and Lytle got loose for racing for the lead. He'll drop to second.
Lytle does a pretty good job of hanging on to that car and not involving anyone else there, and honestly hanging on to that track position. He'll slot into third here behind Ethan Burrell. That could have been a lot worse for the driver of the 56 car.
Yeah, this looks an awful lot like it did at the end of last season with Ethan Stanley leading a parade of Pro Edge Toyotas around here. Ethan won that race but was not in the Final Four. Matthew Weeks ran second in that race. He ended up winning our Cup Series championship. Ethan Burrell was running for do good at that point, but he was right there in third, and these guys are all grouped back together once again as the guys who are differing right now are Tyler Fody and Gavin Hibbs working that bottom lane just behind. Hibbs has bypassed Corey Abbott. Tyler Fody now working on the driver of the 21.
And I think especially on the fresher tires, you're going to see some guys experiment with that apron. At some of these D-shaped or tri-oval tracks, you can really make up some time on the front stretch by shortcutting that area, getting down on the apron as close as you can to the grass. The challenge with that, especially at a track that's so top dominant like Kansas, is it really pins you down on corner entry and sacrifices some of that corner speed through turns 1 and 2.
I completely agree with you there, Zach. I like running the apron at these tracks, but up front, Ethan Burrell got to the outside of Ethan Stanley. He has taken over the race lead. So from one Ethan to another here at Kansas, 4 laps in, we have our first lead change, and it's Burrell taking it over Stanley, and both hit the bottom of the racetrack here. You know, we've talked about the handling of this car and already just a little bit, but we expect a very tight racing condition for these guys. That means that right front tire is going to burn out. I wonder if some of these guys aren't going to try to save their tires for expecting a long green flag run and try to run that bottom of the racetrack and see if that helps them out.
And certainly that is a trend at Kansas. We touched on that in the pre-race. You look back at one season ago, we only had 2 cautions in a 250-mile race. So even a longer race than tonight, a race that had 167 laps versus tonight's 134-lap distance, and just 2 cautions in that race. So if according to the trends, we could see a lot of green flag racing tonight, and I think you have to account for that. You have to manage those tires and know, yes, track position is important, but you also have to be able to have a fast car 40 laps from now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And there's the fast car right there just behind Tate Lytle, the 6th car of Justin Wadsworth. You know, if we're looking for storylines, I don't think there's one better than this 6th car. You can look on our ticker here, the pylon, if you will, Justin Wadsworth's number in red. That signifies that he is one of the 5 drivers that is currently out of the next round in points. Wadsworth last week coming into contact with Chad Frankenfield caused our lone caution at Mid-Ohio. Justin was none too pleased with the driver of the 15 car, but it looks like that set a bit of a fire under the belly of the 6 car, and he's out for blood right now. He's up to 4th and looks really sporty early in this race.
Certainly terribly disappointed was Justin Wadsworth 1 week ago, and understandably, with that contact that resulted in the caution, puts him behind the 8 ball a little bit coming into tonight, but honestly not in a terrible position to make the top 9. He's only just a handful of points out. Very important tonight. Get a good run. Dig back out of that hole a little bit. Give yourself some breathing room for Talladega next week, because we know what that can be.
If I'm Justin Wadsworth, I'm hoping to grab a race win too, right? He has not won a race at this level, but that is a driver certainly capable of it with a number of top 5 finishes in this season alone, working with such teammates as the guy in front of him, Ethan Stanley, the guy right behind him there, and Ryan Gable. For Lake Norman Motorsports, this is a group that wins a lot in this series, and Justin Wadsworth's shown the pace to be able to do that, and it looks like he's driven up to the back bumper of his teammate here, and now he's settled in. He's just trying to find his rhythm, and they're going to watch a battle for the lead brewing in front of them. Gavin Hibbs has been the driver on the move in that 95 car. He is hunting down Ethan Burrell at this moment.
Certainly a strong showing at the moment for Gavin Hibbs in that red and black machine. You see just behind Ethan Burrell, and I was going to mention, Justin Wadsworth last time we were here in that 250 miler that wrapped up the 2024 A season. He had a top 10 showing. Well, Gavin Hibbs finished 30th in that race. So definitely a much stronger outing so far for Gavin Hibbs.
Yeah, Hibbs has, we've talked about his season pretty much every single week. He's been a top 5 or 10 car getting on the screen, and ultimately he's run into quite a bit of heartbreak this season. Had a lot of races that he maybe had a chance to win, slipped through his fingers, whether by his own doing or other drivers. And last week he led up until about 2 laps to go, and that car behind him, Ethan Stanley, made that pass late. And I think at Bristol, where Gavin was leading with just a few laps to go, and wound up wrecked. Finished second at Martinsville. Like, he's had a lot of chances from that spot right there, but he hasn't been able to get it done. And for a guy not in the chase, no orange number on our pylon, he's just looking for a really good result here to feel good about here as we get ready to close out the season. Got a big battle here back in the field. Kyle Hanshaw, Casey Hatch, Andrew Rucker. This is all a fight for the 37th position. But it's showing just how competitive Kansas is. It's tough to make passes if you're back in that group. Up front, guys also making some more passes. Tate Lytle, Matthew Weeks, a couple of guys who like to save their tires. They've started to move forward here as the laps have ticked off. We're now 15 complete. Ryan Gable to use that high side to jump up to 5th. He's now fallen back, and Wadsworth has also fallen into the clutches of those Pro Edge Toyotas.
Matthew Weeks. Well, we'll take a look here. This is Tyler Fody, Chris Wright. This is a battle for the 8th position. Chris Wright on the outside. Chris is, he's really kind of turned up the wick a little bit here in the later part of the season. Obviously not involved in our playoff, unfortunately, but he's put together at least some good speed here in the last few races. The results have not always been there to reflect that, but I mean, 7th at Daytona, top 5 at Martinsville. We've seen some stronger showings here in the second half of the season from the driver of the 9 car.
Yeah, Chris, the issue has never been ability. Definitely a fast driver, one capable of running well. I think this next-gen car has thrown him for a bit of a loop since we've shifted over to that. He's struggled a little bit more, but I think he would tell you that he's got to be better. And then when he's gotten to those results, he's really starting to come around on it. And I think as he grows as a driver with this next-gen car, he's going to be right back there in the mix. I mean, I've seen this guy battle for championships with the guys out here on the racetrack right now, and he's lulled out a little bit, but he's working it back in. And right now, this 9 car looks really fast. I don't know if he's burned up the tires more, or if maybe Ryan Gable and Justin Wadsworth did coming through the field. That seems to be what's going on right now, and Gavin Hibbs might also be paying the price for burning the tires a little bit early here, because the 3 of them are starting to fall backward.
And 18 laps into a run, that's when you're going to start seeing who has managed those Goodyear tires, who has put themselves in position to work their way forward over this run, as we watch this battle for second between Ethan Stanley, Gavin Hibbs. Stanley, if I recall, was our most recent winner at Kansas when we ran the finale here 1 season ago.
He sure did. And he's back up into second. The Ethan and Ethan show continues. Fun fact we learned today, they're both Ethan William. They have the same middle name, too.
Today,
Tate's also a William.
Learned.
So we got a bunch of Williams. I'm sure William White might be out there, too. A bunch of Williams over here in the Elite Racing League, and 2 of them out front. There you go. Ethan Burrell, Ethan Stanley out front, Gavin Hibbs under the clutches of Matthew Weeks. And I want to call attention to Matthew Weeks as we are back at the site of where he won the championship the last time out, but we have not seen a race win from Matthew Weeks this season. It's been a bit strange, I would say, that this 11 car hasn't found its way to victory lane. He's almost, I don't want to say been bad, but maybe just been a little bit off, has Matthew Weeks. We saw him pull back on the track at Iowa in front of some cars and just had some very odd mistakes where those aren't the things I'm expecting from a two-time champion in this series. And Matthew Weeks is showing some really good pace right here today. The speed is there. The long-run speed seems to really be there for this 11 car. I'm looking for Matthew Weeks to go out there and pull off a race win here tonight because it's been a while.
It has been a while. I think we're all a little bit surprised that that's the case, right? Matthew Weeks, one of the absolute best here in the Belly Up Sports Cup series, but this season just the results just haven't been. I won't say they've been a complete. I mean, obviously he's in the playoffs, and there's been plenty of strong runs, especially in the first half of the season, to put him in that position. But these last few weeks have really been a struggle, and Matthew needs to kind of get it turned around here and right now, showing that speed that we know he's capable of so far tonight.
I'll tell you the word for his season. It's quiet. He's been quiet. We haven't heard a whole lot from him. He's either usually causing not causing, but the part of drama and a lot of, the various discussions that we have here, but we haven't heard from him. He just hasn't been involved in much of anything since Pocono when he and Ethan Stanley got together on the final lap of that race that ultimately was won by this car, our pole sitter Tate Lytle. Tate and Weeks are working together perfectly here. They have bypassed Gavin Hibbs. They are into clean air. Ethan Stanley's just up the road, and then their teammate Ethan Burrell, and you got 3 Pro Edge cars and 1 Lake Norman car in the top 4, and Tyler Fody is quickly gaining on Gavin Hibbs to make that a 3 Pro Edge 2 Lake Norman top 5, and we wouldn't have it any other way up here.
Oh, speaking of teammates, there was just a little bit of, didn't lead to anything, but there was a little bit of contact between, you'll never believe it, Chad Frankenfield and Justin Fortner as they are battling for, I believe this is about 23rd position.
It is 20th position. It's Hunter Smith there in the 54. Chad is in the middle, 3 wide in the 15, and then Fortner down on the bottom in the 26. And these guys are teammates of a playoff car. That's Ryan Schold, but he hit the wall in lap 1, fell all the way back to the 37th position in the 4. So this battle right here is just Josh Adams rolls to the top. They're going to be 4 wide on corner exit of turn 4.
I don't know how that didn't end in absolute heartbreak.
Netcode could have come into play there. It did not. Jordan Owens is hanging out right behind this group. And I would suggest Jordan get out of there quick, either bypass him or fall back, one of the two. Make sure you're running at the end of this thing. That's one of our playoff drivers in the 16 car, Jordan Owens. These teammates are holding each other up. They're hurting each other's chances right now.
And this battle had been going on for quite a while, honestly, and I happened to notice it right as, like I say, Frankenfield and Fortner made contact. Fortner has been able to get away a little bit, but Frankenfield continues to kind of free fall on that bottom line. Not sure if that's saving tires or if he's used up his tires, but either way, it's not what you want to see for the fans of the 15 car right now.
Yeah, just behind him is Jeff Green side by side with Trey Holmes. They got really tight on the entry of turn 3. Holmes gets to the outside of Chad Frankenfield. He's following behind his fueled up racing teammate Justin Vandermarl in the 80 car. So those two Chevys bypass these 2 Little Eagle Fords, and Smith and Frankenfield continue to hemorrhage spots on the bottom of the racetrack. Now here comes Leighton Norgard in the 12. Chad's going to finally try to slam the door going up to the top and bypass Hunter Smith. Maybe Chad was stuck in behind Hunter Smith right there, and Smith is the car that's falling backward.
And Justin Vandermarl got a piece of the wall there going through turns 3 and 4. Didn't seem to slow him down any as he negotiates around his teammate, but definitely a little close for comfort there for Justin Vandermarl in the 80 car.
I've seen Justin Vandermarl bounce it off the wall 3 or 4 times thus far. I just think that's the line he's running. I don't have any other thoughts there. I think Vandermarl's just keeping it close to the wall and occasionally bouncing off of it, but it doesn't seem to be hurting that 80 car any.
A little further forward, there you see the battle of the 6 car and the 9 car. Justin Wadsworth chasing down Chris Wright. That's for the 7th position.
2 good numbers, I would say.
They're pretty nice.
Let him into. Tyler Fode has taken 5th over from Gavin Hibbs. And look who's inching towards the top 10 there. He's currently running in 12th, but one of our championship contenders, a guy who won the Xfinity race at Kansas on the Monday side of the Elite Racing Series, that is Jonathan Cutlip in the 5 car, and he has steadily worked his way forward from the 25th starting position up to 12th here in the opening 32 laps. That's pretty good work, and I anticipate Jonathan Cutlip will have something to say about this race by the time we get down to the end of it tonight.
I mean, that's pretty much picture perfect how you draw it up. If you have a qualifying effort maybe below your standard, a situation like that with Jonathan Cutlip, manage, patiently work your way through traffic, manage the race, buy some positions here in this first green flag run, maybe do a little work with your pit sequence here to pass a couple of these other cars, and then if that goes to plan, you should be in the top 10 the rest of the way, and you just try to make the most of it from there. It's pretty much exactly what you want to see if you're Jonathan Cutlip so far.
Cutlip working his way forward just behind him as Cutlip breaks into 11th. It's David Tucker, who missed last week's race, was suspended due to an incident on the Xfinity side of things. I think also at the race at Kansas, which Jonathan Cutlip won, and Gavin Hibbs starting to really drop now. That 95 car pushed a little too much, it looks like, on those right side tires, and he will get bypassed by the driver I was just speaking of, David Tucker, in that 19. Our Bristol winner, and a guy who's probably going to need to win a race here in this playoff if he wants to go out there and win a championship. And I don't know, he might be able to get away with having a really good points day today, but I think David Tucker needs to be trying to pull anything off to get up there with his Pro Edge teammates.
Yeah, especially, let's just be honest, the elephant in the room for all of these guys is Talladega next week. You don't want to be in a hole going into that race because it just puts so much pressure on you in what is such a wild card race. So certainly David Tucker would love to get a win tonight and not even have to worry about that Talladega race.
Easier said than done, though. Tucker's more of a road course expert typically, and this Kansas track tends to lend itself towards those guys you see in that top 5 on your pylon. Those would be, I predict, the 5 favorites entering tonight, and Nick and Delicato just in front of Cutlip and Tucker, a little bit loose. That'll invite Jonathan Cutlip to hunt for 9th on the inside of the 10 car.
You mentioned road course during a Kansas race, and I kind of got a shiver. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if you've ever partaken in the road course layout here at Kansas, but it is certainly it's a racetrack.
One of those racetracks. You know me. I definitely have not. Yellow flag is out. Caution has waved. Lap 37 of 134, and it's going to be Bojo.
That does look like we may have our culprit. I did not see it on my end.
Oh. You were talking about running the apron at the beginning of the show tonight, and Ray, he's just going to clip off of Brent Jones. Luckily, the 89 not damaged. Don't think Ray could tell where he was going with the hood up on that 7 car, and winds up in the fence.
I also wonder, we might get another replay. I don't know how much control he would have had at that point, as hard as he hit on the right front. We'll see here on the Ribeless replay machine. Yeah, that's a pretty hard shot on the right front. Yeah, and it looks like there's at least some wheel damage there.
Yeah, I don't think I'm pinning Ray bouncing off of Brent there as intentional or poor sportsmanship or anything. And once he gets in the wall here, he gathers it on the binders and gets out of the way for all these other guys. But luckily for Ray, charter's already been secured for next season, so the 7 car will be racing next year. And probably he's got the Rookie of the Year title locked up. We didn't touch on that before the show started, but he and Mike DeWalt have been racing for that. But he's got a pretty sizable lead on Mr. DeWalt, so I think that should be okay. And Ray does receive the tally per race control Nick Massey. As we watch the race off pit road, Ethan Burrell, I believe, takes it, but he disappeared on my screen. He's back, though, and Matthew Weeks is the driver who leads the race up. Actually, no, it's Ethan Stanley even further up the racetrack. So let's run an ad, and then we'll talk to Ray Bracey, and then we'll go back to Green Flag Race.
Since 2010, race fans have had one burning question. When will the Xfinity Series return to Worldwide Technology Raceway? You asked, NASCAR delivered. On Saturday, September 6, 2025, the magic is back. The track that launched the legendary careers of Harvick, Busch, Keselowski, Edwards, and Earnhardt Jr. is now ready to write that next chapter. We're going to introduce you to a new crop of future champions and Hall of Famers. And in the process, we'll create more of the greatest moments in racing history. NASCAR Weekend 2025, the NASCAR Cup Series Championship Playoffs, the Confluence Music Festival, and now 250 miles of the NASCAR Xfinity Series. 2 incredible races, 1 challenging track, a 3-day party of epic proportions. Go to www.raceway.com and lock in your weekend racing and camping packages for as little as $20 down.
I am joined by Ray Bracey after the caution incident. And Ray, what happened out there, buddy?
Just lost my focus basically. I I was trying to avoid the apron all night, and then I didn't even know I even hit it when I spun until the very last second. So it's just one of those mind things where I guess I was already kind of tired, and I just kind of drifted low, and there it was. And I'm just fortunate I didn't hit Brent too hard after the wreck, because my hood was up and I was just trying to slam the brakes. But yeah, it was just not a good time.
I got you, Ray. Well, any shout outs for us here before we send you off and get back to this restart?
Just shout out to you guys in the booth. Always fun to watch the broadcast on replay, and I might make a quick shift out of this. So shout out to my YouTube channel if you want to watch me embarrass myself once again.
The YouTube channel is great. We'll make sure to reference it again later. But thanks, Ray, and good luck next week and any other races you may have coming up.
Much appreciated. Thank you, guys.
That's driver 7, Ray Bracey for South Shore Racing. Unfortunately, the first victim of the Kansas Speedway tonight. After the restart, it is Ethan Stanley taking over the race lead. Matthew Weeks has bypassed his teammate Ethan Burrell. And Jesse Racine is sideways in the middle of the pack.
And it looks like that they've been able to gather it up and keep going here. There is Jesse Racimus rejoining the racing surface and almost losing it a little bit on that apron as well. We'll get a look here on the replay to see exactly what happened there. It does look like Racimus was able to avoid significant contact, and it looks like it just gets loose on him there.
Got loose on him, got loose on Jordan Owens in the 16 as well. Both of those guys loose to the inside, catch it, continue on. But with this next-gen car, those tires will be barking at both Jesse Racimus and Jordan Owens. These next couple laps, very critical for them to not get out of control, try to get those tires back under control in terms of the temperature. And up front, battle for the lead. Ethan Stanley's fallen to 5th. Matthew Weeks has taken over the top spot in the 11.
Matthew Weeks trying to work that inside line. I think Burrell's going to have to run here out of the corner. He will. He'll clear Weeks. Weeks will settle into that second spot, but still fighting. Driver of that 11 car is we're going to see Tate Lytle try to reel them in from the high side.
Lytle to the top. Tyler Fody has worked his way back up to that 4th spot. Stanley, it looks like, just got caught on the bottom and dropped back due to just kind of running the wrong lane. This outside lane's really dominant, but it seems to burn up that right front tire a lot more than some of these other some of the guys who have been running the bottom. So yeah, there's some risk and reward with taking it to the top here, and you can see a lot of different drivers running a lot of different lanes at this Kansas Speedway.
And that's what drivers love about this track, right? It's a driver's track. Yes, the high side running against the fence tends to be the preferred line, but you can really manage a lot of different strategies, a lot of different lines, and figure out what makes it work for you on a given night. And that's really the hallmark of what we call a driver's track, or a track that the drivers love on the sim, is one where you can kind of control your destiny a little bit more and not feel like you absolutely have to run the car a certain way lockstep in order to have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the beauty of this progressive banked speedway, where the outside line banked a little bit differently than that inside line, and you can see it as these two Lake Norman teammates battle for that 5th spot. We still see some battling up front between the Pro Edge teammates, and then back in the field, Nick Indelicato got a piece of the wall coming off of turn 4 last time, right up in front of Scott Crump, just about caused an incident. He's almost got it again. I think Crump might have got the wall that time. So these guys tight on corner exit in turn 4, and that's leading to some near miss moments where these guys could wind up running into each other later in the race, and that aggression level is tuned up.
And these early race restarts tend to be recon missions in that regard, right? It's your chance to maybe take some chances, figure out what moves you can make while in traffic, because at some point there's a decent chance we'll get to the end of this race and we'll have a 10 to go or 12 to go or 5 to go shootout, and you're going to have to get everything you can on a restart like this.
Got Crump off the wall once again in the 90. And yeah, to your point, right? We've seen some guys be really strong, really aggressive early in the runs. We've seen, Christopher spun off the front bumper of Justin Vandermarl. Caution flag will wave, and we'll get another one of those restarts.
Several more cars. Who was that? Ryan Scholl that comes in late there? Hunter Smith?
I think it was Hunter Smith. Stouffer gets spun. Let's see how this started between the 47 and the 80. It looked like Stouffer just came across the 80's nose. Yeah, he's just coming across the nose of the 80 car, I think. And then that's just too late in the corner for the 47 to be able to slow down. And he is on the binders, but it is just too late. And Leighton Norgard, Josh Clark, Jordan Owens might get a piece. He might get away with it there. Casey Hatch slides into it. Like Clark and Norgard are the two that got the most damage in this incident.
Norgard does indeed have a meatball, as does Stouffer, who has disconnected from the lobby. That's a tough break for those drivers. Certainly, especially those guys who were on the racing surface. They would have seen Stouffer spin to the inside and hoped he'd stay down there. Unfortunately, just hard to tell from the replay if maybe he fought it just a little bit too long before locking it up, or there was just too much speed and he never had a chance to keep that car on the apron. But regardless, the end result is the 47 does come back up on the racing surface and collect several other cars, and Leighton Norgard got the worst of that aspect of it.
Yeah, he for sure did. So you can see from our Whiplash SimCam's exit of pit road camera that we've got some pit strategy going on, and worth noting that Christopher does get the tally there from race control Nick Massey. Massey, driver of that 48 car, he's offered graciously to provide race control tonight. Want to give him a shout out because he didn't have to do that, and we've seen the race control have some frustrating calls and difficult calls to make this season. So props to Mr. Massey, of course. And there's a look at the top 5 right now. As there's going to be some strategy, I think, in this one. But why don't we jump to our ad reads before the restart here?
All right, let me get those pulled up here.
Of course,
this is the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. Belly Up Sports, the internet sports bar. Sports commentary via podcast, forums, and articles on topics ranging to nearly every sport. Not your usual sports site. Check them out on X or at bellyupsports.com. Our premier sponsors, Blue Egg Marketing. Rev up your business with Blue Egg, your marketing pit crew. Turbocharge your lead generation with experienced drivers that can navigate the competitive track to connecting with your customers. With Blue Egg, you're always in the pole position, leading your brand toward victory lane. Don't spin your wheels. Accelerate success with Blue Egg, fueling small businesses to win big. Worldwide Technology Raceway. Worldwide Technology Raceway is a motorsport racing facility in Madison, Illinois, just east of St. Missouri. Features a 1.25-mile oval that hosts the NASCAR Cup Series, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, and the NTT IndyCar Series. They have a 2-mile infield road course used by Speed Tour Trans Am, SCCA, and the Porsche Club of America. There is a 1/4-mile NHRA sanctioned drag strip that hosts the annual NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series Midwest Nationals event. A title so long could be written by Chad. And finally, they have the Kartplex, a state-of-the-art karting facility. And 40 Racewear, makers of the ultimate sim racing shoes and custom apparel designed for sim racing by sim racers. 40 sim racing shoes are custom engineered to connect racers to the pedals in a way no other racing shoe can, and still provide all the comfort needed for those double and triple stints. Visit 40racewear.com and check out the original racing gloves for your feet. And then our race sponsor tonight, RevLimit Workshop. This race broadcast is brought to you by the RevLimit Workshop, your go-to for pulsating designs at unbeatable prices. Need a logo or promo? Get yours for just $5. Want a full racing scheme that stands out? It's only $15. Contact us on Twitter to get your premium custom scheme today. That's all.
Those are our sponsors and partners. We appreciate every single one of them. Had a bit of a shakeup here on pit road. Josh Adams, Justin Fortner, Hunter Smith, and Dustin Dewar have stayed on the racetrack. There weren't too many laps there on those tires. Behind them, it'll be Ethan Burrell on 2 right side tires, then Mike DeWald also probably on 2 tires. You got 4 tires for Weeks, Fody, Stanley, but Chad Frankenfield up into the top 10. I believe he also got 2 right side tires. A lot of different strategies here. As Josh Adams leads them down to the restart zone, he and Justin Fortner will be side by side. Adams goes early in the zone. We are back racing that outside line, pulling forward, and Josh Adams off to the lead in turn 1. Here comes Ethan Burrell to the bottom to make it 3 wide.
Oh, we've got almost 4 wide further back in the field. It's going to be a little bit of a land rush as these fresh tires close in on the older tires. Ethan Burrell trying to be the first through the fire.
He is the first through the fire, but Matthew Weeks with 4 fresh tires gets the luck to him. Justin Fortner had a good turn 3. He will be side by side with Josh Adams just in front of this group. Tyler Fody works his way to the back bumper of the 11 car.
3 wide there, almost contact there between Hunter Smith and Matthew Weeks, but Matthew Weeks has got to be able to power his way.
No, Dewar into the wall, off the front bumper of DeWalt. We also had 1 spin to the bottom. Didn't catch who it was.
I believe it was Scott Crump and David Tooker that spun to the bottom, and they're so far off the racing surface, iRacing is not going to throw the caution.
Wow.
Here.
That's 2 playoff drivers, just David Tooker and Scott Crump, and David Tooker's got some big-time right front damage on this 19 car. That might be the end of the night for David Tooker. 3 wide for the race lead. Josh Adams up top, Ethan Burrell to the middle, Justin Fortner on the bottom.
Contact there. They keep it together, but to follow up on your point, David Tooker does have the meatball flag.
Yeah, that car is done for David Tucker after missing the Mid-Ohio race last week. That puts him firmly in a must-win situation next week at Talladega, and Tucker's pretty good at Talladega. He could certainly make it happen, but it requires as much luck as it does skill at Talladega, and unfortunately for David Tucker, I don't think that one was remotely within his control. Just the incident in front, Ethan Stanley into Hunter Smith right in front of the field, everyone taking evasive action around the 54 car. Stanley looks like he just got a little bit tight and bounced off of that 54 and sent him careening into the fence.
Yeah, that was a pretty big impact there for the 54 car, and he also has a meatball from that.
This next-gen car seems to be a little more fragile nowadays than it was before. Up front, Chad Frankenfield hunting for third on Tyler Fode. 3 wide around Gavin Hibbs between he, Mike DeWald, and Dustin Dewar. And Fode took the run up front, and he moved up to third. There's Gavel, 3 wide with Dewar and DeWalt. Another playoff driver trying to work his way through this traffic is Nick Indelicato in the 10, just behind Ryan Gable.
Yeah, it's hard to say for most of those guys who stayed out that it's hard to say that has worked out for them. A lot of them. Oh.
Contact between the 11 and the 40. Matthew Weeks and Tyler Fode. Weeks is clear right now at this very moment. Will he slide up in front of Tyler Fode? He will. Fode crosses him over, jumps to the bottom in the 40. He'll take the spot at the line, but this battle is far from over.
Weeks trying to cross back underneath Fode. Don't think he's going to quite be able to get there. No, he'll have to settle in for now. But definitely a big battle there for this second position.
Tyler Fode up top, Matthew Weeks on the bottom. They're both hunting 2 right side tires of Ethan Burrell. I'll tell you who this strategy has worked for so far is the guy in 5th place right now, as we did get a tally on the 9. That would have been Chris Wright. That's probably for the damage between Scott Crump and David Tucker, no? Yeah, that's where that'll be. Understandable. We didn't even get a chance to look back at that one. So if another caution comes out, we'll try and sneak back to that incident. But for now, the guy who's working out in terms of the strategy to stay out is Justin Fortner in the 5th spot. He has been able to hold serve without holding anybody up at this point. Josh Adams starting to fall back. That 22 car seems to be wearing the right front just a little bit more than the others, but it's worked out nicely for Fortner. It's working out nicely for Chad Frankenfield up in 4th. Here comes Jonathan Cutlett to the inside, and this is just in front of a big 3 wide battle, including Justin Wadsworth, Josh Adams, and Ethan Stanley.
Ethan Stanley trying to get back towards the front of the field here. Right now working that apron through the front stretch, but he's got to be pinned to the bottom here, and couldn't quite get alongside Justin Wadsworth there going through turns 1 and 2. That's got to open up some room for Wadsworth to work his way.
Oh, Nick Indelicato in the wall down the back.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of guys collecting that wall on the exit of turn 2 right now and just pushing the limits, crossing over the limits a couple of times.
Adams into the wall.
Yeah, I believe there may have been some contact there between Chris Wright, Josh Adams. They're still bouncing off each other. Now Adams in the wall.
Yep, Adams and Wright not playing happy. Those guys are typically friends too. That's an unwelcome sight for the guys right behind this duo. Looks like they've sorted it out. To your point, Zach, Rucker almost into DeWalt. Can't get a thought out edgewise at this point as these guys continuing to fight. Thought Wright and Adams were just about to wreck each other again. Adams is blocking Wright down the front straightaway.
Yeah, there's clearly some tension there between the 22 and the 9 car, and now Chris Wright will drive underneath Josh Adams and try to close out there on corner exit. He will clear Josh Adams and pull in front.
Those guys are in the same Discord call, by the way, so they are probably yelling at one another. Hey, cut it out. Let Me Go is just behind. There's a 3 wide featuring 2 of our playoff drivers. Nick Indelicato and Jordan Owens working 3 wide around Mike DeWalt. And Delicato will take that spot, but there is visual damage on that 10 car on the right front corner from where he smacked the wall in the back straightaway earlier, and that may be hampering the speed of this car.
Yeah, you could tell he just didn't have the drive, at least that time, off turn 2 that we're seeing a lot of guys muster up when they run that high side. And right now, Jordan Owens trying to work his way around that 10 car. He's having to do it from the low side, but again, he's got to drive all the way down to the grass, shorten up that front stretch area, try to keep up as much speed as he can through turns 1 and 2, and he's about to have some company from Nick Indelicato's teammate, unless he drives into the fence.
Ooh, Ty McIntosh into the wall, right in front of Mike DeWalt. Everybody streams to the inside, including 2 more playoff drivers. Johnny Thomas, the 83, Ryan Schold, the 4. They make it around. Seth Rawls, the 25, also makes it around. They're 3 wide just behind Jeff Green, Gerald Campbell in this mix. Jesse Racimus is in this mix. Whole lot of fighting and jostling for position, taking advantage of mistakes, a lot of ruthlessness in the middle of the pack.
And it's crazy to think we're just past halfway.
We're getting halfway.
Yeah, we're about to reach the halfway mark in this thing, and yeah, it's we've still got plenty of time to figure out who's going to actually win this, but the intensity is already at a much higher pitch than I would have expected at this stage of the race.
Especially in this group of cars. This is all for 15th on back, basically, right? Andrew Rucker, just in front of this group, is the 15th place car. So Josh Adams on the older tires, he's falling back. Jordan Owens, Nick Indelicato working their way forward into the top 20. But just look at the ferocity of this pack. And this is all behind race leader Ethan Burrell, who just led the halfway point. As race control, Nick Massey does throw it up on the screen. Burrell gets that halfway point that will assist his ascent to the next round. But Burrell was probably going to make the next round anyway. He had a good run last week. I think finished 6th in Mid-Ohio. He's already running well in this race. So it would take some catastrophe to ruin that. But he's had a really strong start to this race. And there's a guy that doesn't need a good run here, but we were expecting the defending winner of this race to have a good run, and I think that contact with Hunter Smith has either damaged this 91 car or it damaged the set of tires, because Ethan Stanley has fallen all the way to 12th. He is not making ground up. He is losing spots right now to guys like Justin Vandermarl. It's not something I'm expecting from this 91 car, given its pace this season.
Yeah, and it like you touched on, it seems like for whatever reason the car's just a little bit more fragile right now than we've seen it other times in the season or have come to expect on this next-gen platform. Certainly seems to be hampering that 91 car at the moment. He's on the verge of the top 10 at the moment.
Yeah. He just got back by Chris Wright at Ethan Stanley, and I envision Ethan will be able to get back to a good running spot, but a little bit surprising to see him struggling in this middle part of the race. Someone who's not struggling, as Chad Frankenfield just about bounced it off the wall running with Tate Lytle and Matthew Weeks up here, is the guy that's just in front of this battle, and that is Jonathan Cutlip. And I touched on his bad qualifying run earlier in the race. I noted that he would probably find his way up to the front, and Zach said exactly that he expected him to take advantage of the pit cycle. And Jonathan Cutlip strapped on 4 fresh tires on the last pit cycle, and took advantage of the cars blowing up the various cars that he was racing with, and has pulled past Tate Lytle, he's pulled past Matthew Weeks, and if he doesn't blink out of this race, this is a car fast enough to win the event.
It is definitely picking him up and putting him down, that 5 car at the moment, as closing in on that 40 car of Tyler Fody, listening in on somebody not happy with somebody further back in the field. Real shocker there, the way we've seen the race so far tonight. I didn't quite make out what the situation was there, but some displeasures shared.
Yeah, the way, we flashed back to the back of the pack there as we have worked our way towards the front. As Chad Frankenfield is now on pit road to try and belt some tires on the 15 car. The way we saw the middle of this pack racing was very intense. and they have not stopped. They're still 2 and 3 wide every lap around this Kansas Speedway, but that 2 and 3 wide racing is definitely allowing the front of the field to split apart from this rear field. You can see the gaps being formed. This group, Johnny Thomas, Gerald Campbell, Zach Rogers, all running for 17th to 20th or so. This is 7 to 8 seconds behind race leader Ethan Burrell. So as they dice and fight and side draft and wear the tires even more, they're creating bigger and bigger gaps up to the cars in front. Here comes Justin Fortner down pit road.
Very curious to see how this strategy is going to work out. Let's see. How long has this run been, I guess?
20. I don't have a good enough resolution for that, Dave. What's it, 25 laps? Yeah. And then they also had the 12 laps before. Did Fortner and Chad Frankenfield. So it's, what, 30 laps? But they could probably make it to the end from here.
Maybe?
But I don't know that I would want to, but they probably can.
Feels early.
Yeah.
Feels early, but we'll see how it plays out.
Jonathan Cutlip has bypassed Tyler Fode and moved into second spot. Cutlip has not won a race this season, but boy, he feels like he's got Kansas, something about Kansas nailed down, does Jonathan Cutlip. He was super fast in this Xfinity Series race, and today, once again, he just seems to have it right now as he drives it into turn one. Did he shift down to fourth, or was that has he been in fourth the whole time? Yeah, it looks like he's running fourth all the way around.
That's interesting.
Under the apron, and he's eating into Ethan Burrell's lead. You can see it visually coming down. Jonathan Cutlip is very quick right now. Wow. Last time by, he was 32.7. Burrell ran at 32.9. Tyler Fode also ran at 32.7. And I'm seeing not much of anybody in that 32.7 bracket throughout the field. Most everybody's up at 32.9 to 33. So it's Cutlip and Tyler Fode that are currently the drivers that are fastest on the racetrack, and they are hunting down Ethan Burrell at this moment.
Yeah, definitely a lot of pace there, and now the trick is, of course, it's one thing to catch a guy, another to pass him, but that's such a dramatic disparity. Unless the wild card here is Fode, right? Because he's got that same pace. Can Cutlip get around Burrell without giving up this second position? And right now, he's kind of in a tough spot to do that.
Tyler Fode to the top of the racetrack in the 40 car to try and work his way around Jonathan Cutlip. Ethan Burrell kind of throwing, I don't want to call it blocks, he's just throwing the wake onto the two cars racing behind him. Look at him kind of using both lanes on the straightaway to try and dirty up the air on both Fode and Cutlip. He's taking up that outside lane that's the preferred lane here at Kansas. Burrell's doing nothing wrong. He's racing with the lead. He's driving out the mirror right now, and just behind him, Tyler Fode cleared Jonathan Cutlip. Can Fode do anything with this 37 car? Interesting. So Burrell's running fifth, and Cutlip's running fourth.
Looked like a little bit of a wobble there maybe from Burrell near the middle of the corner. Here comes Fode.
And he's used this move a couple of times, pulled it on Matthew Weeks, where he can send it into the corner just a little bit deeper than anybody else, but that does give him the advantage of having that outside line. And so now as Burrell tries to get back underneath Fode and Cutlip rocks to the bottom, we're 3 wide for the lead.
3 wide for the lead here on this long green flag run. Burrell in the middle. Here comes Cutlip trying to power by on the inside. They're going to clear Burrell, but the battle for the lead still on between Fode and Cutlip.
You're out there, you got the clean air, you're leading, you're doing everything right, and then the two guys behind you just split you 3 wide and drive around you and keep going. That's what Ethan Burrell just saw. Tyler Fode, Jonathan Cutlip still side by side for the race lead. This time at the line, it's Jonathan Cutlip that leads it, and they doorbang going down to turn 1.
closing in on 50 laps to go here at Kansas. Watching this battle for the lead unfold. Fody on the outside in the 40 car. Cutlip to the inside in that yellow number 5. I mean, they still side by side. They've done this for about 2 laps now.
Yep, Cutlip, Fody, perfectly even around this Kansas Speedway, and I would not count out the 11 and the 56 from this battle as they continue to battle side by side. Ethan Burrell's only got 2 right side tires right now, hence the drop off, I think, in performance in this 37 car, but he's able to keep this track position, and as we approach that final pit stop, Ethan Burrell will certainly be one of the cars that can make up time, I think, on pit road by potentially pitting a little bit early. Just in front of him is the race lead battle, which continues to rage on, and finally Tyler Fody clears by Jonathan Cutlip for that race lead.
And what a battle that was.
I don't think so.
Well, Cutlip's got to try and go back after it. We'll see. I just don't think, no. Yeah, the bottom was not going to be the way to get back involved in that, I don't believe. And now the question becomes, all right, if you are Jonathan Cutlip here, do you want to keep riding? You've got that long run speed on the rest of the field, but now you've got to get around Tyler Fody. So what's the call here? Do you try to match him as far as when you come down pit road? Do you try to undercut him? Do you try to give yourself the fresher tires at the end of the race? What's going through those guys' heads up front as far as pit strategy?
Tell you what, I haven't broadcasted a lot of these races, having worked with Tyler Fody a lot. I know exactly what is in the mind of the driver of the 40 right now, and that is wait for all these guys behind him to pit. Jonathan Cutlip's coming down pit road right now.
I wondered if it might be time for Jonathan Cutlip to pull the trigger just to do something different, right? You've shown you have the long run speed. If there's anybody that can maybe afford a little bit of an undercut, it's him. But
he overshot
the pit stall. Oh no.
That will put a slight damper on the capability of the 5 to undercut the 40. But I think there's going to be 15 or 20 laps before Tyler Fody drops down pit road. He likes to wait until he is the last car on tires in his group, right? And I don't foresee Matthew Weeks or Tate Lytle coming down pit road for a while either, because they have a tire advantage right now, I think, because they saved early in this run. Cutlip's going to get out to a lead, but and it'll be a little bit less because he overshot the pit box. I don't know if it's going to be enough, and that's typically Tyler Fody's strategy: is get the fresh tires on it, track down whoever undercut you, and take the lead over late.
And here's got to be what's the tricky part for these guys who are starting to pit, or the guys we saw pit earlier, such as Chad Frankenfield. You have the fresher tires. You need this race to stay green to kind of make that strategy work, especially if you're not on the lead lap, and certainly right now that is not the case for your Chad Frankenfield, your Justin Fortin, or your Jonathan Cutlip. They are a lap down. So what you can't do is cause an incident catching up to some of these guys on older tires that are going much slower than you. And so far, Frankenfield has been able to manage that pretty well. It's got to be Cutlip's turn to kind of work through that process now.
Right, and Cutlip has to be careful, right? Playoff driver, he's got to take care. As Andrew Rucker comes down pit road, and I expect it from a guy like Jonathan Cutlip to be pretty respectful in this front, but also kind of he's going to be aggressive, right? He has to be. He's got to go out and win this race. So you got to take advantage as much as you can here while you've got the fresh tires. And how much is that fresh tire advantage? If you were asking at home, Jonathan Cutlip last time by ran a 32 flat. Last time by, Tyler Fody ran a 33 flat. And Gavin Hibbs comes down pit road in the 95 car. So does Ethan Stanley, Tyler Fody's teammate. But they're gaining a second a lap on Tyler Fody right now.
Now, I'm sure Ethan, as there we see Mark Rebeles, has overshot his pit stall.
Fody's on the bottom. He's coming down this time.
Well, there you go. I was about to say maybe Ethan Stanley will pass along some info, but he didn't even have time to gather it. Ooh, locked up a little bit on pit entry. I'm going to take a look here. Looks like Fody's safe.
I think the two of them got to pit road speed. Ethan Burrell just follows Tyler Fode right down pit road, and ultimately this cans the lead over to Matthew Weeks. I've got my eye on both of these race leaders, see if they encounter similar issues to Jonathan Cutlip. Fode and Burrell both. Oh, Burrell had to back up as well.
Man, these pit stops have proven to be a little bit of a trouble spot. Well, now
Weeks.
Matthew Weeks.
He was aggressive. He was very aggressive. If he made it, that was a very aggressive pit road entry.
I am not seeing a black flag for the 11 car. We'll now see, can he make the pit stop? Can he hit his mark on the pit stop, or will he also overshoot?
Yeah, it seems like the hot tires are just somewhat frustrating for these guys to get down to pit road speed. Up front, Justin Wadsworth stays out another lap. Tate Lytle, yes. So Lytle, Wadsworth, Gable, Holmes, Owens. The top 5 have all stayed on the racetrack. In terms of positioning for guys with tires, Chad Frankenfield is back on the lead lap in the 15. Jonathan Cutlip has not yet gotten to Tate Lytle. He is on the screen in the neon yellow number 5. He's just in front of Justin Fortner and Mike DeWalt, whom he had to work his way around. And then it'll be Ethan Stanley and Tyler Fode. Fode is carving through the field right now. Guys with a little bit slower tires and stuff right now are just kind of yielding out of the way of the 40 car. And then it's Ethan Burrell and Matthew Weeks just behind him. So the fresh tire order is Chad, Cutlip, then Stanley, then Fode, effectively.
So obviously, this is the flip side now for Chad Frankenfield, right? He's been able to get a pretty sizable lead on the other drivers who have pitted to this point. He's likely going to cycle through as the leader, but now he's got the oldest tires on the track, and really it's not close other than a couple of other guys who pitted around the same time as him, and that advantage is going to disappear at an alarming rate.
Yeah. Chad, enjoy the time that Chad does have the race lead, or even the de facto race lead there, Chad Frankenfield fans, because it will not be long. Tate Lytle on pit road. Justin Wadsworth does take the race lead over. I had something. Not sure what it was. Lost the train of thought there. Lytle, Holmes, Vandermarl, Owen, Rogers all on pit road. Wadsworth, Gable, Thomas, Green. The car's still on the racetrack. Casey Hatch comes down pit road. Frankenfield has a 3-second lead on Jonathan Cutlip. And he is gonna lose that. He's gonna lose that lead in a hurry. In fact, it's already down to 1 second.
Yeah, I was about to say the difference between those two cars was nearly a second on that last lap.
I know what I have. We showed him on the screen just for a second. He's back here in the pack with Chris Wright, Ryan Gable, is Michael Goodman. And just before we jump on Chad Frankenfield, I want to touch that Goody is running a Detroit Lions car. Goody is a Green Bay Packers fan. I have to touch on it because I'm sure there were bets made this week based on the NFL games, and Goody lost. Oh, and Goody's into.
No! Get away! Get away!
Goody got into Matthew Weeks. He saves it. We're still green. Let's move up. Let's move up. Frankenfield and Cutlip are about to battle for the de facto lead. Go Lions from Nick Massey. And yeah, we got to cut away. We got to cut away from Goody. Quick. Anyone else? The Hawks car? No, not that one. There we go. Justin Wadsworth is really slow. Did he miss pit road? I think Wadsworth missed pit road last time by.
Yeah, I'm going to try. Yeah, there we go. We'll get a look on the Rebelus replay machine. That sure looks like what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Wadsworth too hot on pit road entry and has lost a ton of time. He will now have to come around on old tires after scrubbing off a ton of speed and come down pit road again. Justin Wadsworth has really thrown away his good running spot in this race, and that's going to cost him a lot of points entering Talladega.
Corey Abbott just had a big slide out of turn 4. I'm not sure if there was contact with Brent Jones or not. There was some close racing there, but Corey Abbott almost slid through the grass here on the front stretch.
Review says, yes, contact with teammate Brent Jones. For the Corey Abbott machine, we'll get a quick replay of it. Johnny Thomas has taken over the race lead. He's picked up a point for leading a lap. Behind him is Scott Crump, who's also hoping for this to cycle out so he can get a lap led. And good save by Corey Abbott. A little bit of incidental contact between his teammate and himself there. None the worse for wear for now. Johnny Thomas is there. He is the race leader. He's in front of Scott Crump, Jeff Green, Gerald Campbell. Then it's back 18 seconds to Jonathan Cutlip, who is the de facto race leader after pit stop cycle through, but he is only about a second ahead of Ethan Stanley, and then another second or so back to Tyler Fode, and then it's another couple of car lengths back to Ethan Burrell. So that's your front 4, with Frankenfield and Weeks rounding out that front 6, all behind the 4 guys who have stayed on the racetrack.
And of course, how much is that a killer for Justin Wadsworth? I mean, right now, I believe he is being scored in about the 32nd position. Just a ton of time lost, a ton of track position lost for that 6 car.
Yeah, not only had he already committed to a strategy that was going to drop him in track position, but he also whiffed pit road. And I've been there, right? It's certainly something that it's an easy mistake to make. It was probably a little bit better as Chad Frankenfield just made contact with either Goody or Andrew Rucker on the front straightaway, but it's better a mistake than speeding up pit road, I think. Chad's like stopped on the front straightaway. I think he might have spun out.
Well, there's
he did, yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, you could see the tire marks through the grass.
He got into Michael Goodman.
And Frankenfield is showing with a meat ball, I'm guessing from that contact with the wall.
It definitely was, yeah. Right there.
Yep.
So Frankenfield slams the fence and will get yet another frustrating result this season. It's not been a great season for Chad Frankenfield.
Right.
No, yeah. Worth noting, Ethan Stanley has bypassed Jonathan Cutlip and taken over the de facto race lead. Cutlip did pit before Stanley and Fode did by a couple of laps, so the 91 car has really come to life here late in this race. So we check on Chad Frankenfield heading down pit road to fix the damage on this 15 car. Johnny Thomas remains the race leader. Gerald Campbell has pitted out of the 4th spot. That means that Ethan Stanley, running 4th, is the de facto leader. He's got Cutlip and Fode bearing down on him right now, though, and that is going to be the battle for the win. Tyler Fode's trying to challenge for that, what is the 5th position. Here he comes to the outside of Cutlip. Cutlip tried to get that undercut, but it has not yielded dividends. Fode now around the outside of Cutlip. Burrell looking on. The 2 Lake Norman Chevys will do battle for this race win.
Jeff Green on pit road.
Green stayed out as long as he could. That is 2000 Busch Series champion Jeff Green. Tyler Fode to the bottom of the racetrack, going for what is going to be the race lead once Johnny Thomas and Scott Crump head down pit road. Teammates battling for the lead right here as well.
Stanley on the high side, Fode on the low side. Here comes Fode.
He will clear by the 91 car and take over the lead. Tyler, well, it's not the lead yet. The de facto lead. 3rd place on the racetrack right now, but they are quickly coming up on Scott Crump and Johnny Thomas. They're within 10 seconds of the 2 leaders at the moment. Cutlip third, Burrell fourth in this group. They're still right there. I think Cutlip's going to need to keep saving the stuff. He's already at a bit of a tire disadvantage. With 24 laps to go, though, how much saving can you do? You pretty much got to go out there and get what you can this late in the race.
It sounds like a tally has been issued to the 44 of Michael Goodman for that contact with Chad Frankenfield.
All right. Goody appealing that tally. Thomas and Crump are now within a second of each other on the back straightaway, and you can see Ethan Burrell, Jonathan Cutlip side by side. Burrell got a piece of the wall that time by. Cutlip clears back past Burrell, but they're kind of watching these Lake Norman Chevys drive away.
Fody is in a really good spot right now as far as being able to kind of run in some clean air at the moment as they close in on Johnny Thomas and Scott Crump. And man, this is what we love about this track, right? We talked about it leading up, you know, the different strategies that could play out, and certainly right now it looks like Tyler Fody may have played that game the best out of these front runners so far.
Worth noting, up ahead of this Tyler Fody onboard camera battle for the lead, Scott Crump is trying to go around Johnny Thomas on the back straightaway. You can see the de facto leaders are on the same straightaway as these two leaders, but Scott Crump hunting for that lap-led point. Both of these guys hoping for a yellow flag to be able to get them to come down and get 4 tires, join up their strategy with the rest of the field. Scott Crump takes over the race lead, but the two of these guys are not going to win this race. In fact, they might even lose the lead before they drop down pit road here.
Well, I mean, unless they get that caution. I mean, you hinted at that, and if you got that caution before those guys can catch up to you, you're right back in the ball game. If you're Scott, well, I say that, and Johnny Thomas is peeling off the racing surface.
They both come down pit road. That has handed the lead to Tyler Fody. Stanley and Cutlip nearly side by side for second. They are side by side for fourth, and Matthew Weeks has driven up from over a second back of this group to take over that fourth spot. So Matthew Weeks has entered the picture. He's got some pace in the 11 car. I think he's going to have the freshest tires by a lap or two. Could be a new challenger for Tyler Fody, but right now Jonathan Cutlip is the car on the move. He's looking after Ethan Stanley for the second position, and it'll all be behind Tyler Fody, our 2023A Cup Series champ. I believe it's 23A. It might have been 23B.
Whatever the case may be, again, that battle for second starting to pick up, but it might have some company soon. Like you mentioned, Matthew Weeks drawing in, but as it stands, Ethan Stanley, Jonathan Cutlip side by side as they battle for the second position.
Stanley trying to keep that outside line going, but it seems like the tires have gone away on this 91 car, and Cutlip surges forward in the center of turn 3. Jonathan Cutlip moves back to second, and Matthew Weeks is going to take advantage right away.
And you have to wonder, Jonathan Cutlip on that undercut, how much did he manage that? How much did he give himself a chance, knowing it might go green, to save something for the end and maybe keep Tyler Fody honest? And right there, he was able to open up a little bit of a gap as Ethan Stanley had a moment out of turn 2.
Cutlip's cutting into the lead for Fody, as here comes Weeks to the top of the racetrack around Ethan Stanley. He'll get to the left rear corner of the right rear corner of this 91 car, and that'll be the preferred lane for the 11th. So unless Ethan Stanley can close that door, I think that Matthew Weeks is going to have, oh man, great run through the center of 1 and 2 for Ethan Stanley. Now they're going to have to contend with Gerald Campbell, who has much fresher tires in the 00. And Stanley overdrove turn 3. It's going to be Weeks on the bottom of the racetrack taking over third place.
And worth noting, Campbell, not a lead lap car at the moment. Those fresher tires, he's trying to get around these leaders and get back on the lead lap, but this is not for position, that 00 car.
And Campbell can't just pull over. He's got to go get back in the lead lap. He's an open car running for those open points to try and grab a charter for next season. You know, and it's one of those things where he's on a different strategy, but he can't just pull over and let this race, the battle for the race win, play out. He's got to go get back on the lead lap right now and try and make sure that if that caution does happen to come out, he's in a position to capitalize on it.
Oh, 100%. You know, right now he is in that free pass spot, but everything just works a lot better if you're able to just get on the lead lap before that caution comes out, if we were to get one here in these final 14 laps. And Campbell made a lot of progress, but right now kind of stuck behind that 5 car of Jonathan Cutlip.
I'll tell you, he's not stuck behind him. He's pushing him. Campbell's giving him the old bump draft to try and get him up to the back bumper of Tyler Fode. Campbell is a well-known, I won't call him a Tyler Fode hater per se, but he's certainly one that has always acknowledged the pace of the 40, and I think he just wants to have a little fun with Jonathan Cutlip and Tyler Fode here and try and impact the battle for the win here, because Jonathan Cutlip has made up the entirety of that half-second deficit in the span of about 2 laps.
Certainly an interesting wrinkle here as we get to 12 to go, and you mentioned it, that gap is gone. Jonathan Cutlip is there. And now how do you resolve that, though? I mean, how, you know, if Gerald Campbell, do you keep hanging around, or do you try to get around these guys? Now it's side by side for the lead.
Yep, side by side for the race lead. Campbell's just following the tire tracks of Jonathan Cutlip. Cutlip's car tight. Tyler Fode tight to the center of Jonathan Cutlip, and their side by side battle is going to open up the door for Matthew Weeks once he gets there. Johnny Thomas also has way fresher tires than these guys. He's a playoff car. Johnny's going to have to try to find his way through here, and Campbell's been a little bit more patient, willing to follow the 5. Johnny Thomas is not going to be willing to follow along with these guys. He's got to go get back on the lead lap and gain positions here.
Oh no!
Sideways.
Cutlip gathers it up, and that's got to be exactly what Johnny Thomas needed, but not what Jonathan Cutlip needed. Thomas is able to get out in front. He's able to clear Gerald Campbell, get on the lead lap, but now Tyler Fode has opened up almost a half-second gap on Jonathan Cutlip.
Cutlip was able to mitigate the damage from that significantly because Fode had to kind of wash up and let the 2 lap cars get in front of him there. Jeff Green's now going to play a part in this. He bypasses Matthew Weeks with fresher tires, and Green's going to be the next driver to hunt after Jonathan Cutlip. So these leaders having such a severe undercut on the rest of the field is kind of opening up the potential for these cars that have that fresher tires that stayed out longer last time through to impact their race for the win here. And we've already seen it a number of times. Jonathan Cutlip now 0.3 of a second behind Tyler Fode with 9 laps to go. He might need some more help from another one of these lap cars to get up there to Tyler Fode. It doesn't seem like he needs the help, though. Cutlip's already narrowed that gap to 0.2.
Behind that, you see that Ethan's battling again. Ethan Stanley getting a piece of the wall there, but he's able to get out in front of Ethan Burrell for that 4th position.
Green just put Jonathan Cutlip in a really bad spot coming off of turn 4. But luckily for Cutlip, Matthew Weeks was getting bypassed by Scott Crump at the very same time. So it didn't impact Cutlip's gap to Weeks any, but it did impact Cutlip's gap to Jeff Green, who is now side by side with Matthew Weeks once again. And Scott Crump's pinning Cutlip to the bottom. So these lapped cars really are playing a big role in who wins this race now, because Tyler Fode's been able to kind of avoid the chaos for the most part. Cutlip got sideways on the back straightaway. Weeks has been battling them pretty severely. Cutlip's had to battle pretty severely, and it's allowed Tyler Fode to open up a half-second gap.
Oh, and that was a really awkward moment there with Fode and Crump. And Crump going to the high side there, and he'll be able to get around Fode, but it was not without some trepidation between those two.
Yeah, that was Tyler Fode yelling at Scott Crump to go high, go high, go high. Don't pin me up there and wash up into me. Go around me on the outside so we can both keep up momentum. Working as a team there, trying to keep both of their races intact. Scott Crump back in the lead lap in case we get a caution here in the last 6 laps. Tyler Fode trying to win this race and hoping it goes green for these last 6 laps. Mark Revelas just got a piece of the wall in front of the leaders. This lap traffic is not going away.
No, now it's coming from both directions. Here comes the 96 of Revelas right in front of Tyler Fode, and that's got to be another challenge for these leaders to work around it. Mark's got to keep his car to the high side here, but is Fode got to be able to clear him before he gets to turn 1? Yes.
Fode clears Urbilas, 5 laps to go. Cutlip is about half a second behind. It's just going to be a little too late unless some of these lapped cars tangle up with Tyler Fode. Cutlip's now going to have to cede a spot to Jeff Green while bypassing Mark Urbilas. Not the easiest spot to be in if you're the second place driver.
Oh, this is going to cost Cutlip a ton of time. Don't be surprised if he loses a couple of tenths on this lap. He's still hung up battling with Jeff Green.
Yeah, Cutlip's got to let Green by here. Green's got such fresher tires. It's allowing him to jump up alongside the 5 car every lap. Cutlip's so much faster in the center of the corner, though. He's able to pull ahead. It's crazy how much that's impacted this race, because I do think if Cutlip had been able to run these last 15 or so laps without the cars around him, he probably could get up there and battle for this race win. As it stands, 3 laps to go. Cutlip made up a 1/10 of a second that time through. He is still gonna have one more run at Tyler Fode before this is all said and done.
It's been remarkable to see the ebbs and flows in this battle for the lead. I don't know if Cutlip has time, but he's mustering one final charge here, and
he needed that lap to be a lot better than it was.
He did, but the wild card in this, after Gerald Campbell has kind of used up the good in those tires, and now the leaders are closing back in on him.
Yep. Cutlip picks up another little bit that time. 2 laps to go now for Tyler Fode, just in front of Jonathan Cutlip. 1 win between the 2 of those drivers for this season. Not how I would have expected it to roll at all. As we come around towards the white flag lap, Jonathan Cutlip is going to have one more perfect lap in order to bypass Tyler Fode if he wants to take the RevLimit Workshop 200. We will get the white flag we will end it next time around. The Whiplash SimCam's white flag is out. Tyler Fode, 0.3 of a second ahead of Jonathan Cutlip here. Does Cutlip have anything for him in turn 3?
Tyler Fode down the back stretch one more time, leading Jonathan Cutlip into turn 3 and 4. Fode to the bottom. I think he's got it, David.
Yep, Tyler Fode off turn 4. Cutlip makes a run, but it's not going to be enough. Tyler Fode will win the RevLimit Workshop 200 at Kansas. Jonathan Cutlip will come home second, 0.3 of a second behind. Matthew Weeks third, Tate Lytle fourth, and Ethan Burrell will come home 5th. And a good green flag run to the finish there. That was fun. And Cutlip and Fode giving a little bump there at the end. I'm interested to hear from the 5 and the 40, and maybe also Matthew Weeks here as well, because there were definitely some, we'll call them shenanigans, but the lap traffic and all going on there at the end, and I'd like to hear their thoughts as we watch Tyler Fode burn it down.
One thing to point out in that scoring pylon, despite missing pit road, Justin Wadsworth salvaging a top 10 finish.
Yeah, I think he drove his butt off coming back through the field, and you can see just how damaging it was for a guy like Johnny Thomas. We'll get to the replay here as we watch Tyler Fode burn it down for the JD Designs number 40. It's funny because JD Designs, that's Jonathan Cutlip. Like the battle, Jonathan was battling against his own paint there for the race win, and ultimately comes up just 1 spot short. We'll go through the running order here after and we might go through it right now. As we can see, Tyler Fode will lock himself into the round of 9 with his win at Kansas. Jonathan Cutlip and Matthew Weeks will have to sweat out Talladega. Trey Holmes did come home 6th behind Tate Lytle and Ethan Burrell. Ethan Stanley 7th, Wadsworth 8th, as Zach mentioned. Then Ryan Gable 9th. Gavin Hibbs rounds out the top 10. Good run for Justin Vandermarl, finishing 11th. Zach Rogers, I believe, clinches a charter with that 13th place run for next season. Top 15 for Jordan Owens, continuing that consistent season. And if we look at the next page, we're going to see a few playoff guys that did not have the run they were looking for. Johnny Thomas, Scott Crump, 23rd, 24th, and well down the ballot is David Hooker in 37th. So those are going to be the guys that are in must-win situations next week. So too Ryan Schold in 27th. But let's hear from Matthew Weeks. What do you say?
I like it.
Matthew Weeks, David in the booth. You got me, buddy?
Yeah, man, I got you.
Well, P3 for you today, man. You were up front pretty much the whole day. Take us through that battle to the end and what you needed to get up there to fight for the front two, with the front two.
I think I should have just ran the bottom earlier in that last run, probably longer, instead of I just went straight to the outside the last, I think, 40 laps right there. So I think if I saved my tires maybe a couple more laps, I could have had a shot. Or if all those lap cars were in the way, that really killed my tires there too. So I don't know if I could have passed them, but I still take a P3 though. I needed it after the last month and a half of racing.
You touch on that, Matthew. Obviously, it's been a struggle the last few weeks here in the Cup Series. Big podium finish for you going into Talladega this week. I know that has to feel good.
It feels good. It feels good because I felt like I had a winning car tonight and to run up there all night. So it feels good to be back to where I should be, because I'm, like you said, dude, I've been struggling for weeks and I just haven't felt right on the track. So, and it's me. I've kind of stepped away. I've been doing other things and really haven't been trying to get that little seat time in you need to really compete with some of these boys in this league.
Take me to Talladega next week, Matthew. What's your strategy there? You're going to try to pick up max points or just go for the win and get locked into the next round?
It depends on my point situation. A lot of times I just like to go in there and I always go by the first run of the race until we get our green flag stop. That decides how I'm going to race the race. So if the first 15, 20 laps look crazy, I'm just going to chill. If it's real calm, I'm going to get up front and try to stay up front, because I think that's the key, is to stay up front and try to avoid the chaos midfield. So depending on the point situation, it will really determine how I run that race next week.
Before we let you go, Matthew, who do you have to thank and shout out on this run tonight?
Shout out, 213 Simware, man. They've been with me for a long time now, and it's cool to have. I know we don't do it in modern NASCAR as much, but to have, one brand stick with you for a long time, it's been a while. So it's cool to have that and running the same scheme. I love my scheme. Shout out JV Designs, my buddy Justin Vandermerle. He had a good run tonight. Hit him up on Twitter for some great paint schemes. He makes fabulous. And no one knows John Cutlip. He ran second tonight. He's a good friend of mine too. He paints as well. JD Designs, hit him up. They're probably the two best painters on the sim. All the Pro Edge boys, we showed up tonight and had speed. Tugger had some bad luck, and that sucks for him. He needed a really strong run-in tonight. And all the fueled up guys that run well tonight, and everyone that watched, you guys in the booth. And yeah, man, that was a good race. We needed that.
All right, well, congratulations on third place there, Matthew, and we'll see you next week at Talladega.
All right, man. Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
That was Matthew Weeks, driver of the number 11 Pro Edge Toyota. Let's grab the driver of the number 5, and that's Jonathan Cutlip. And John, I know I pulled you out of there, but we need your thoughts on that final run to the end, because it looked like you had a couple of chances to catch Tyler Fode and try and get around him, but ultimately come up P2. Take us through that final run.
Yeah, it was a battle of attrition. The car was super tight, so really since the stop, I was just trying to maintain, just not tearing it off, and just hopefully get back to Tyler, because he had 5-lap pressure, and I was just hoping that he was going to run fast enough to where I can just out-manage him. It's just, unfortunately with the lappers, just at the end it was just too much to try to hold them off and race Tyler at the end.
Certainly, that was a huge factor in the end of the race, was the lap cars on the fresher tires and negotiating that. How do you manage that mentally and emotionally? Because obviously it's frustrating when you can see the leader right in front of you, but at the same time, those guys are running their race as well.
Yeah, it's I get it. They have a race that they're racing too. It's just not about me. It's just you kind of just hope you have that courtesy of just like getting a break just to race it out for the win. It's just unfortunately that didn't happen.
And John, regarding the contact there late, was anything you could have done differently, I guess, is the question. And then looking ahead to Talladega next week, what's your plan? Because Talladega, obviously, a bit of a chaotic wild card. Anything you expect to be able to do to try and make it to the round of 9?
As far as the contact, I'm not too worried about it. It happens. I don't think it was anything malicious. I've raced with Cody for a couple years now. We've been pretty clean towards each other, but Dega next week, yeah, it should be fun. I always have fun at play tracks. You can just go full send and just race each other as hard as you want to. Yeah, it's just one of those races where you just hope you can make it to the end. It's just don't play it too safe and end up in the back and just high risk of a crash, and just hopefully you can stay up front the entire time and just manage the race.
Well, John, before we let you go, you got any shout outs for us?
Yeah, Race API, great team to be a part of. Build Up Racing, I'm on that team over here. It's a really fun group of guys with Vandermeer, Holmes, I don't think, Personette, and I don't think Casey was here, but yeah, I'm happy to be a part of both groups. It's like the best of both worlds for me, just to have fun over here and race API for the Road to Pro stuff. Shout out to you guys over here at Elite, Dave, D West, Zach. It's fun to watch these races back and just, watch the action back again, because it's super fun to race.
All right, well, congrats on a runner-up finish there, John, and we feel like your win's coming in the booth. We were talking about you all night, and good luck next week at Talladega.
Yeah, it was a scary start tonight. 25th wasn't the best start, but I'm glad we rallied up to second.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, and we'll catch you next week.
See you.
That was Jonathan Cutlip, and now let's grab race winner Tyler Fody. And Tyler, I wouldn't call it a dominating win, but a very steady win tonight, and it locks you into the round of 9. Good result overall from Kansas, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, just wasn't dominant by any means. A lot of clicker cars there early on. Just really thought it out, and just strategy-wise did what we needed to do, went when we had to, and was there at the end. So yeah, really happy with it.
Talked about it with Jonathan as well, but from your perspective, how much of a challenge was it dealing with those lapped cars on the final green flag run there?
Yeah, I mean, especially at the end when they're just not trying to pull away, was pretty cool. Yeah, a little bit of games going on there, but it was tough. It definitely was aero sensitive with the dirty air in front of you, and the lines were kind of moving around all through the night. I really didn't want to believe that middle was good. Watching John start to run me down using it, and started to use it right there at the end, and realized where he was getting all the speed from. That and Gerald pushing him, but yeah, just trying to stay on top of the track and be out of the way of the lap cars, and just battling there was it was a lot.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too, but I think I'll just stick with what's your plan at Talladega next week. You're locked in. You got your teammate locked in to the next round. So anything you can do to maybe help Wadsworth or Crump or one of your other Lake Norman teammates draft into the next round here at Talladega?
Yeah, well, that would be the plan. I don't know how the points are shaking out. I know Scott was like way on the wrong side of strategy all night, so I'm assuming he's going to probably need some points. Yeah, we'll just have to take a look at it, see what's up. And yeah, just have some fun and hopefully get everyone through to the next round.
Well, before we send you off, Tyler, any thank yous or shout outs for us before we send you out tonight?
Yeah, just the Lake Norman guys there. Got a really good setup, kind of dialed in where we wanted stuff, and felt competitive all night. Just track position was what you needed. So shout out to all those guys, Stanley, Wadsworth, Gavel, Crump. Like I said, Crump had a tough night, but everyone else got top 10, so always good to see. And shout out to Cutlip again, just for the battle. It was really fun there, going back and forth with him. I got a little loose. Obviously, we made contact, so apologize to him for that. But yeah, always fun racing those guys. And shout out to him for painting the car too, and all of our cars. And yeah, you guys up here in the booth for sticking here with us.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on the win, Tyler. Enjoy it. It had been a minute, and now you've picked up 2 of them in the last couple. That's 3 weeks. So good momentum going into the rest of the playoffs, and we'll see you next week at Talladega.
Yeah, appreciate it.
That's race winner Tyler Fody for Lake Norman Motorsports, and he's won the RevLimit Workshop 200, and that's it for us, but we've got a real adventure for you guys next week. Definitely make sure you come and join us for Talladega next Wednesday night, and the next time the Elite Racing Network broadcasts, I think it's tomorrow in the IndyCar Series. No, Dave? There you go. Tune back in tomorrow, and
Watkins
Zach, any
Glen.
final thoughts? Watkins Glen tomorrow. Zach, any final thoughts from Kansas?
No, I mean, you said it going into Talladega. All bets are off. No telling what we will see in that cutoff race as we find out which 9 drivers will move on in this playoff. And unofficially, it looks like it's got to be pretty close for that bubble points-wise between Jordan Owen, Scott Crump, and of course, Nick Indelicato, Ryan Scholl, Johnny Thomas, David Tooker will be looking for that Talladega win to try and sneak their way into this next round.
It will be an adventure. I highly recommend you guys join us. But for David Huckleberry, Zach Evans, and David Westergreen, this has been the Elite Racing Network for the Belly Up Sports Cup Series. We will catch you next Wednesday. Everyone have a good night.